Hi everyone, welcome to the second last chapter of UNISA PYC3701. Good luck for the exams. This is a fun chapter, but I hope we can get through it fast. Okay, so we're going to look at theories, different factors leading to aggression, bullying in particular, how to prevent and control aggression, and then some information that's specific to South Africa. Theories. Okay, so when we look at aggression, the first thing we look at is biology. Freud and Konrad Lorenz, who was an evolutionary biologist, suggested that aggression is instinctive. And in fact, if you look at all animals, you'll see that they show aggression and they use it to compete for resources, mates, and so on, status. There is considerable evidence that men do indeed aggress, partially because of mating rivalry, especially when females aren't around, and also indirectly that aggression increases the status of men as well as other animals, which makes them more attractive to women. Drive theory. Drive theory, remember Freud had Thanatos, the death drive? Drive theory is a kind of broader example of that we have an innate drive to be aggressive. Then we're also looking at the frustration-aggression principle, which is that when we are frustrated for whatever reason, we respond with aggression as a drive. Okay. Social learning theory. Van Dera, here's the Bobo doll experiment, showed with this experiment that people learn to be aggressive both through observation and through direct experience. So they learn when to be aggressive, against whom, how to do it, and why, in what contexts. Okay. The general aggression model. This looks at how a sequence of factors leads to aggression. So you either have thoughtful action, which is not aggressive, or you have impulsive aggression, action, which may be aggressive. Okay. So first you have input variables, then you have the current internal state, and then you have appraisal and decision making, which leads to either thoughtful or impulsive action and possibly aggression. Okay, so input variables. There are two kinds of input variables, situational from outside and personal, such as traits, beliefs, perceptions, skills, and experience. Okay, the current internal state, there's three aspects to it. So we can see that it would be affect, anger, feelings, cognition, okay, and arousal, the physiological state of excitement in the physical organism. So is the sympathetic nervous system engaged, or is the parasympathetic nervous system engaged? So there are three. Okay, now you get aroused, you get angry, you think someone's wronging you. Now you're going to decide, am I going to punch this person or not? Is it this person 6 foot tall? I don't think so. Risks, benefits, possible outcomes. Then you decide. And then you have either thoughtful or impulsive action. Impulsive action may be aggressive. Okay, so it's not perfect, but it's still useful because it looks at the factors that prime people for aggression. Okay. All right. What are the causes? The causes are multifactorial, social, cultural, personal, and situational. In fact, I think this chapter grossly underrates group aggression such as warfare and gang violence. But anyway, that's another matter. I think both textbooks do. Okay, aggression is often a response to frustration or provocation, from the frustration-aggression hypothesis. But the thing is that we found that frustration is far less important than provocation. Provocation is extremely significant. So let's look at provocation. Okay, when does provocation provoke violence or aggression? When it's malicious, condescending, harsh criticism, teasing, and a threat to social status. Okay, let's look at arousal. Arousal is any state of physiological excitement, both positive and negative, and is strongly correlated with aggression. Excitation transfer theory. Okay, so once you're aroused, it's easy to turn that extra energy and adrenaline into annoyance and then into aggression and violence, because especially if you're not following your own self, because you're already going to, you get a fright and then someone annoys you and you bite their heads off, even when they're trying to help you. Okay. Social causes. I think this is the school children, the latest one, shame. Well, it was the latest one yesterday. By now it's not. Okay. So let's look at some of the social causes of aggression. Social exclusion and rejection contribute to a hostile cognitive mindset. A lot of that in South Africa. Media violence. Violence in movies and games strongly correlates with increased violence around the world. In South Africa, this effect is overshadowed by the effects of familial and community violence and alienation. Okay, but it's not zero. Both in the short term and the long term, media violence in movies, games, and music has been shown to be correlated with causing, in a causal fashion, to violence. So it's like smoking. It's terribly toxic. Okay, Call of Duty. How many thousands of hours does a young person end up playing this game, shooting people over and over and over again with blood splatter? Okay. Hostile expectation bias. So how does media violence cause more violence and more aggression? Hostile expectation bias. You expect aggression from others, which causes more aggressive behavior. The world is out to get you. Everyone's out for themselves, etc. Desensitization. Shoot people, get blood splatter. It's no longer even exciting. Okay. Creates violent knowledge structures of how to behave and when. Okay. Cultural causes. Cultures of honor. Aggression is an appropriate response to insults to honor. Sexual jealousy. Societies where you have to defend yourself, your tribe, and your possessions. So we get honor killings in Pakistan and India, where the women are killed for trivial reasons, and honor killings where men kill one another. And that can go back thousands of years, actually, in some places, like tribal wars. Okay, masculine gender roles also associated with aggression, especially when there's the warrior archetype. Okay. I do believe that an honor culture in America was partially responsible for the wars in both Iraq and Afghanistan. Okay, personality and gender. Obviously, people vary enormously. Some are much more aggressive than others. You can actually see it in their faces. When this is not as wide, it's correlated with more aggression and also with more testosterone. And we can perceive it in one another, which has an obvious evolutionary benefit. Okay, the TAS model looks at traits as situational sensitivities. There's a situational threshold that then triggers behavior. So, for example, they found that violent criminals, their personal sense of having the personal boundary violated is far more sensitive than members of the general population. So this bears this out. Once the threshold has been crossed, behavior is triggered. Before that, you don't get angry. Okay. Type A's, competitive, hurried, irritable, aggressive, more likely to display hostile aggression, specifically to cause harm, okay? But instrumental aggression, both type A's and type B's, who are far more laid back, both do instrumental, which is directed towards a goal. Oh, we're losing. Okay. Narcissistic and ego threats. Narcissism is correlated with aggression and with strong reactions to small provocations. Men are more aggressive than women, especially without provocation. When there's provocation, it's less unequal. Men are more aggressive directly in your face, confrontationally, you know who it is. Women, more likely to be indirect, in other words, stab you in the back, poison you, arrange for someone else to stab you in the back. Okay, both genders use aggression for social status. And it's particularly effective when you've got highly socially skilled people using aggression, and then they're pro-social with everyone else. Okay. All right, when it's hot, people are grumpy and irritable, so they're more likely to be violent. When they're committing crimes, they're more likely to be violent. Okay, but when it's really hot, you can't be bothered. Okay, another very, very, very important situational factor is alcohol. Alcohol makes people grumpy because it reduces impulse control. So they're irritable, okay? It also makes people mean because it lowers the provocation threshold. Well, that's the other way around. Mean reduces impulse control. Grumpy lowers the provocation threshold. And dumb, most important factor, can't think straight, thinks everybody's their enemy, etc. Okay, bullying, major cause of suicide, always down the power differential, although some people who are bullied then bully others who are weaker than them. People bully in order to exercise power, feel better, especially for girls, and get power through status. Both bullies and victims have lower self-esteem. Okay, this contradicts directly what's earlier in the textbook where it says that bullies have higher self-esteem because narcissists have higher self-esteem. But both may be true, actually, if you think about it. But in this context, if you see this question, you know that the correct answer is lower self-esteem. Okay, ruthless, manipulative worldview, everyone out for themselves, mistrust, untrustworthiness, the strong win and the ends justify the means, and all of those kinds of combinatorial beliefs. Okay, believing that you need to respond to bullying with aggression and that aggression brings respect. How to reduce bullying? Okay, you must recognize it as serious. You must intervene and stop it from a position of authority. People who are bullied must know exactly what to do and who to speak to. And ideally, you want a third party to come in to run programs because it gives people a chance to reinvent themselves. Okay, so another way of reducing aggression, punishment, our favorite. Okay, so we use that as a retribution for wrongdoing, as a deterrent, and to remove people from society. But does it work? The answer is yes, partially. But for punishment to really work, it needs to be prompt. We don't get that right. It needs to be certain. We definitely don't get that right. It needs to be strong and it needs to be justified. It needs to be fair. Okay? But if all of those things are in place, it's fantastic. Otherwise, it's only partially successful. Okay, how about self-regulation? Teaching people how to manage their own emotions. Very effective, very important. Takes effort. Often used as part of anger management classes, which are very important and useful. Pro-social thoughts help with self-regulation, kindness, morality, and generosity, and so on. So does exposure to non-aggressive models that you know what to do, someone's teaching you. And training in self-regulation, like actually learning the skill, the hands-on practical skill. Okay. How about catharsis, letting it all out, punching pillows, screaming, whatever, to express the frustrated emotions? A lot of people believe in this, but the evidence is that it does not work and it's not effective. In fact, it makes it worse because as you vent anger, so you teach yourself how to be angry. Okay, how about the reducing of self-esteem? If low self-esteem is associated with bullying, improving self-esteem should help. And this is true. They find that people on the narcissistic spectrum are less aggressive if you've boosted their self-esteem first. And this is because now they have a higher threshold for provocation. Okay, forgiveness. What is forgiveness? It has a negative attribute and a positive attribute. The negative is giving up the desire to punish someone who has harmed us, okay? And positive in the sense of the absence or the removal of something. Positive, actually wanting to help that person. Far more difficult than the first one, okay? But both are useful. This breaks the cycle of revenge and retaliation, the endless feuding that can go on for eternity if you don't forgive. Benefits to the person who forgives. You have higher self-esteem, more positive emotions. You stop thinking about how you've been wronged. You develop more empathy, and empathy helps you to forgive. Okay, let's look at a little bit of information about South Africa. Okay, we mentioned that violence, pornographic violence is one of the worst forms of media to promote aggression and sexual aggression. House robberies in South Africa are terrible. We have violence of all kinds now, kidnapping, everything is going up, and there's lots of hostile and instrumental aggression with extreme violence against all victims, including women and children. This has come up before, so remember that. Okay.
I was driving, stopped at my gate, at my house, opened the gate. As I was going to open the boot, I just saw this white car behind me, and I just told my daughter just to close the doors and just be calm. And the guys were starting getting more aggressive and more aggressive. I just told her that they can't break the windows. The backup is on the way. I've already pressed the panic button. They notified me they're on their way. But in our situation, it felt like a lifetime. And she saw the guys walking around the car, and that's when she started getting panicking, and she wanted to get out the vehicle. And she said to me in Afrikaans is that I can't do this, ek wil uit. And the next moment I got myself in reverse.
Okay, I love that.
I was driving, stopped at my gate.
Okay, wait. All right, now we're looking at rape. Okay. So, very, very, very high in South Africa. Congratulations. Child abuse, multifactorial and multiple types. That's sexual, familial, emotional, physical, psychological, and in various contexts, okay? Rape, the main predictors of sexual aggression are rape myths, adversarial sexual beliefs, and acceptance of interpersonal violence. So we excel in all of those, although the culture is changing, so we have hope. Most rapes are same race, and almost half are by perpetrators that are known by the victim. There's very interesting and disturbing stats in our South African textbook. You can go have a look. Workplace aggression. Okay, there's three categories: expressions of hostility, obstructionism, and overt aggression, and also abusive supervision. But remember that it's either going to be hostile aggression, in which case it's for its own sake, it's not for the benefit of anybody, or it's going to be instrumental, in which case it's to win a promotion or to benefit yourself at the expense of someone else. Okay, I think this is the end. Yes, you can watch this video. It's very sweet. But this is the end of our talk. Okay, so good luck, and I'll see you not with the next video, but with the next subject. Okay, take care. Okay, bye.
individuals who are at risk of becoming violent are people who are able to lose the capacity to envision the psychological experience of the person they're being violent to. It's not to say that they do not ever have that capacity. It's just that they can lose it momentarily. They are vulnerable to it. And the reason that they can lose it is because they had an inadequate experience of having been thought of as a person in the context of early attachment relationship. Because what we have learned, research over the last 20 years, is that the way we become people who are aware of the thoughts and feelings of others, as well as thoughts and feelings in ourselves, is having someone around who is thinking about us as a thinking and feeling person. If we are deprived of that experience, if we had been neglected, we will always be vulnerable to losing that, something we call mentalization, that capacity to envision mental states in others and in ourselves. One of the challenges to understanding violence is that violence varies between societies, within the same societies at different times, and the predictors of violence at any one time don't seem to work terribly well when you try and use that predictor across time. So, for example, there's no doubt that at any one time, economic disadvantage predisposes to violence. If you're middle class, far less likely to be violent than if you were disadvantaged economically, particularly as a child. But in the Great Depression, when everybody was poor, violence was at its lowest. So I think actually what you've got to look at, not so much absolute poverty, but relative poverty. So what really matters is seeing somebody up there and feeling yourself down here. That is what triggers a violent response. So, as long as we have social inequalities, massive social inequalities within a society, we will continue to have violence.